It's the ultimate Lambo. With a 6.5-litre V12 that has 631 bhp. It gets to 62 in 3.4 seconds and will go on to 211 mph. Understandably, Shaky was made up about it.
Hello. You wouldn't believe me if I told you. I'm doing a TV programme for Fifth Gear, and I'm just sat in a brand new LP640 Murcielago driving along. How cool is that? Listen, ready?
We had big plans for Shaky's road test. Lambo had invited us to a NATO airbase to race Tornado jets. Wonder why we're not any closer? Because after 3 hours of waiting around, the Italian Air Force reckoned we were too much of a risk. Although they didn't seem to mind letting Italian journalists near the planes. The team had to cut their losses and jump in with a guide who clearly didn't have a clue where he was. Eventually, the crew found somewhere to let rip.
I think the fastest thing I've driven in probably the last 4 or 5 months is a 2-litre petrol, 16 valve, I must add. That's Suzuki Vitara. It's definitely a little bit faster than the Vitara. You'd buy one just for that, wouldn't you? Just for that noise when you blip the throttle. Listen to that! It's such a strange sensation to drive this car. You can't help but floor the thing. And all of a sudden, this car absolutely takes off. Everything just sort of becomes a blur, but you almost get addicted to that kind of feeling, you know. You just want to floor the thing. So you're driving along nice and slow, and all of a sudden you get this. A feeling that I ride 200-mile-an-hour motorbikes for a living, and driving this and feeling that acceleration is the most aggressive kick up the backside I think you could get from 4 wheels, to be honest. Absolutely incredible.
The 4-wheel drive system sends 70% of the torque to the rear. And a few subtle changes to the bodywork make it more aerodynamic. But for all the amazing statistics, it's the dramatic styling and lime green paint that make this a real supercar pin-up.
Everything about this car says, look, just look at me, will you? Don't forget about how fast I am for 1 minute, you know. Just, you'd buy me just because of how I look and how I sound, let alone how I go and how I perform. But quite an incredible piece of kit, I think. If you've got a spare 200 grand, well, gets my vote.
Wow, that looks pretty cool. How was it?
Mega, yeah, absolutely mega. It was, it's cool to drive something that gives you a similar sort of buzz to riding the bike, you know. It's basically like comparing somebody that's skied all their life and then giving them a snowboard, and they're basically doing the same sort of speed but just a totally different experience. That's kind of how it was for me, you know. I ride motorbikes fast all the time, but to drive a car that fast, you know, as powerful as that was, it was awesome. I loved it.
Does it give you that same sort of buzz you get from riding a bike?
Yeah, it actually made me really, really tense. I was much more nervous driving the car than I would be riding a bike. But it's the same sort of, it's like a learning experience, you know, when you get given something like that to play and you think, it's good, real cool.